What's going on, everybody? Ibrahim, Nwagui Code, Corporate Dropout University, and you are tuning into yet another episode of The Check-In, where we check in with our favorite hustlers, entrepreneurs, and influencers. And of course, today is no different. I'm here with a dynamic individual. I will not muddy up her ability to introduce herself. So I'm going to swing the ball over to this young lady and allow her to bless us with, with all of the great things that she's doing. Dozi.
Yes. Hey, my name is Dozi Oheri, and I'm the founder and CEO of Choose to Do Inc. First of all, I want to say thank you for having me here. I appreciate the invite and allow me to use your platform to talk about who we are, what we do, and so on and so forth. So I appreciate that.
I appreciate you. Come on. Go ahead.
And so it's Choose to Do Inc. is a nonprofit that mentors youth with underutilized potential, ages 9 to 19 years old. Our mission is to focus on the physical and mental benefits of positive thinking. So essentially, we are a mental health and wellness organization for kids. That's what we do.
More of which we need, just in case people were wondering. But before I get into what you do, the first question that I always ask, it's a very simple question, but I feel like people speed through it. And I think it ties into your belief system and paying attention to these things. Very simple question. How are you doing? How are you?
Full transparency, I am exhausted. But I'm grateful for the position that I am and that the platform that I have. But it takes a lot to build this and be consistent in the work that we're doing. So I'm exhausted mentally. I need a break, and I plan on taking a break pretty soon.
I was just gonna say, what are you gonna do about that?
Oh yeah, I'm going on vacation. I'm going on vacation. Don't call me, don't text me. I am not physically and mentally here. I'll be somewhere else.
We are all just gonna act like the ex that you did those you wrong. Do not contact her.
Yeah. Yep, I'm out of here.
So, okay. So this is the premise behind this is we want to humanize entrepreneurs, right? We want to normalize the path. So to me, in order to do that, we gotta get to know the business owner in a more humanistic aspect. So where did this is your brainchild, right? Choose to Do is your brainchild, right? Where did that come from? Where were you at when this idea came to you, and how did you bring it into fruition? I know it's a very full packed question, right? You're probably not gonna be able to just everything, but give me some context of where you were personally. Where were you, even mentally? Where were you when you decided, like, this is what I need to do? Did something prompted, or it was just like a natural flow?
Yeah, for me, it was so I can tell you exactly where I was, and I'm going to put some names out there. It's the first time I've actually shared my names of places where I was, but it's important for the story. So I was working with the Houston Bar Association. I was their education assistant for, I think, 1.5 years or 2 years, maybe even a year. And I was miserable working there. I graduated from college, I got my master's, started working in the nonprofit industry, would work at one place, quit, work somewhere else, quit. And then finally, I ended up at the Houston Bar Association. My job there was to teach kids how to put on a mock trial, a fake mock trial, right? So I taught them how to be the attorneys, the judges, the witnesses, the jurors in that scenario, in a court case. And then we would take them down to the courthouse downtown, and they would actually perform it for their family, friends, whoever, teachers, whoever.
Mm.
And on top of that, also working with attorneys directly and various things like getting speakers for stuff and things of that nature. So one day I was walking into the office, and there had been a list of things that had happened prior to this one day, right? There were things that led up to me being dissatisfied and being extremely unhappy with where I was working. One day I walked into the office, and I said hi to my friend who was a receptionist. At that time, she was 75, I think, 75 years old. Well, but when I tell you that woman had spunk, energy, tell you like it is, like her and I became close because we we knew who we were in that environment, right? It was a toxic work environment, and she didn't play that, and I didn't play that. So her and I became really good friends. So I said hello to her walking into the office, and then walking past her is where all the BS was happening. Like whatever happened in the company culture, it was as soon as you passed the receptionist desk. And at that moment, I just felt like, ugh, I don't want to be here. I do not want to be here. And at that moment, I heard her voice said, you need to quit and start your own nonprofit, right? And from that day, I kept hearing that voice over and over again until
Okay.
one day I walked into the office and I said, I'm putting my 2 weeks notice in. I'm going to quit.
How long did that take?
So it was over, I want to say a month's time.
Okay.
I don't know the exact time frame because my time frames are always off. But I definitely started getting a feeling, and then I got confirmation, and then I put action behind it. And I put in my 2 weeks notice. And I remember too, like I was trying to strategize when was the best time to put in my 2 weeks notice so that I can leave my job I wanted them to feel my presence gone, right?
Mm.
You didn't appreciate me when I was here, so you're gonna appreciate me when I leave. I was just being petty. Because I felt underappreciated, you know? So,
It is what it is.
I gave
You
them
don't have to be
the
superhero.
courtesy. I gave them the courtesy of giving them a 2 weeks notice, but I didn't really feel like doing that, but I did it. And then that's where the journey to figuring out what Choose to Do Inc. would be, what it would look like, what it be. I didn't even have a name for it. It was just like, you need to leave, start your own nonprofit, and mentor kids. That's what you need to do.
So I have two questions, right? Because this is good. This is gold right here. So the first question is, well, it's one question, but it's kind of like multi-dimensional. So, like, what are some of the skills that you like? It's obvious that you cultivated from when you were working in the workforce, and like, can you identify some of those skills that you brought with you?
Yeah. Oh my, I love this question. I feel like people don't ask this enough.
Yeah.
But what you do and the experiences that you have shape your outlook in life. You know, where you work will um, determine how you perform, determine who you can determine who you are. So for me, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 15 years old.
Hmm.
I started off babysitting because I was getting paid to do that. I had my own little service, where I was getting families to contract me to come out to watch their kids. And then my mother, she forced me to learn how to do hair because she said, you need to learn a trade. And then she also opened up, she opened up a beauty supply store first that had a salon in the back. And so she said, you're going to learn a trade and you're going to work in a store, right? And at the time I was like, no, I don't want to go.
Wait. Mom's had the beauty supply store?
Mom's had a beauty supply store.
That's very important.
And,
That's very important. Keep going.
beauty supply store, and it's with a salon in the back, which at that time, there weren't a lot of salons that are beauty supply stores that had that setup.
Yeah.
And so she forced me to learn how to do hair, right? And the first client I had no idea what I was doing, but I charged her $100 to do her hair. She paid me. I never saw her again, but she paid me, right? So, and after that, I started working various jobs. So I think I started working when I was in college, like working officially, getting a paycheck for somebody else. When I was in college, I worked with our inventory department on campus. I worked catering. I worked for Aramark. And I did like other various jobs here and there, right? So I always had a job. I always had a career that I was forming. And the things that I learned along the way was number one, you treat people how you want to be treated, right? I had customer service positions. I had sales positions. I learned customer service very early on. The customer is not always right, but you make them feel comfortable and you find a solution to their problem. If you don't know the answer, you find a solution to their problem, right? And then sales. I learned how to take no very early on. I mean, how to take rejection and no's very early on, right? So I was able to build a tough skin for when things didn't go my way, or whenever I pitched something or I was working on something and it didn't come out as planned, right? I learned to take rejection very early on, which is I think is a very important skill that I think people should learn, because when you're building your own business, you're going to have very tough times. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get no's, but those no's don't define your business, right? At some point, you're going to get a yes. So what are you going to do when you get that yes? Right. And then just like communication, how to talk to people, which I also learned was a skill set that a lot of people don't have, especially nowadays with the younger generation. They're so used to texting and they're so used to instant gratification. And I noticed that when they text or when they communicate with you, it's in a shorter form, you're using emojis, it's not very professional, right? Or it can be used in professional settings. So I learned how to professionally send emails, how to professionally answer calls, how to professionally communicate with people in person, which are basic skills you're going to need. So all the jobs that I have worked up until this point have given me something that I utilize in my business today.
I'm so glad that you identify that as an important question, because one thing for me is I feel like the success is in the pockets of like within the story, right? So like people tell you the story, but if I just follow your story, I'm not going to be successful. I got to know, like, okay, well, where were you at? So that was a great answer. And then also, so remember, it was so two parts. So it's that, and then from the moment that you stepped out on your own, as far as you can identify, how long was your, and I use this loosely, right? Because I know that it's always going to be a struggle at some point, but like, how long was your extreme struggle period? Or was it a smooth transition?
From leaving the job to starting the business?
Yes.
So it was a struggle period.
Okay.
And I would say it ended last year. Or I wouldn't say it ended, but I'm not struggling as much. We don't have the same challenges that we had starting out. We have a whole set of new challenges because we're growing, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So when I left my last job, working with the Houston Bar Association, I became a nanny full-time. I became a nanny because it's so funny because I was literally sitting at my desk at the Houston Bar Association. I was Googling other options of employment that will offer me the opportunity to have more time, right? Time for myself.
Yes.
So I found an agency and I reached out to them. And that meant that I could work when I wanted to work, right? Make the money that I wanted to make. And so that's why I became a nanny. And in that period, so that was 2015 2016 until 2019, right?
Mm.
So I went from working with the agency and them placing me and with the family, which meant that, yes, I'm still working for somebody, but I have a little bit more time to focus on doing the documentation for my paper, for the nonprofit, and getting together things that I needed to start off. And then in 2016, 2017, I left the agency and started finding families on my own,
Mm.
which meant that I could completely work whenever I wanted to work, right? And then 2019, right before COVID, I left the last family that I was working for, because at that point, the nonprofit had grown to the point where it needed more of my time in order to get to the next level. And if I could not offer more of my time, we were going to stay at the same level that we were at.
Yeah.
So I had no choice but to quit nannying altogether and quit, taking care of people or just working altogether so that I could put more time into building the nonprofit. So that happened 2019, and then the pandemic hit 2020. And so I started delivering food so I could pay my bills, because realistically, I have to take care of myself first.
Yeah.
Started delivering food for Uber to help cover the cost of my expenses.
Shout out to Uber, man.
Man, Uber be saving a lot. Well, I would Lyft, Uber, whatever whatever delivery service you use, it helps to. It definitely helped me to sustain me until the business can pay me.
So we're talking about almost basically like a 4 year. So the next question, and as you can tell, I'm letting this pull me. I'm letting this pull me where it needs to take me, because this is good. During that period, were there points where you were like, this not gonna happen? Or were you steadfast from day one, like, you had the vision to the point where like you knew that it was going to happen at some point in terms of like being self-sustainable? How did you, like, where were you at? Were there points where you just didn't know?
That's a good question. So there were, I wouldn't, so for me, I always knew that we were going to be successful. Like, I never doubted the success of the organization. I didn't know what it would look like. I had no idea what it was. I didn't even have a name. I didn't know what we were going to do. I just knew that I wanted to positively impact kids. So when I started the documentation, putting that together to file the state documentation, the 501c3 status, for tax filing purposes, I had met people along my career, working for other companies and working for other people. I have met people along the way that I reached out to for help. And they let me know that I would be good, right? And that at that point, I didn't have anything. I just had an idea. And they believed in me. And that support was confirmation for me that I'm on the right track, right? And as the development happened, as the development happened, I had more people that I could connect with, that I had worked with, that knew me from the past.
Yeah.
And they had a skill set that they wanted to provide me with to help me with my idea. So that was also confirmation. And then as that continued to happen, I started meeting other people that I didn't know, that I was pitching my ideas to, and they were confirming this is a good idea. So for me, it was, I had the confidence in what I was doing because I believed in myself, but also other people believed in me, right? And that I never wavered in the success of the organization, but I will say that there have been moments where I wanted to give up because what was happening at that moment was very challenging, right? And so I had those moments of questioning myself, especially recently. I questioned myself if I'm the person to take this to scale the organization. Am I the person am I capable of taking this to where it needs to go. Am I that person? So I've been having that thought. Well, I mean, I had that thought like the beginning of, or sometime last year. But that thought quickly faded away. Like, I'm not even, it's got to be me. There's somebody else that can do this. But yeah, so I've had moments where I wanted to quit, and but I always know I'm going to come back. It's just a short period of time where I feel down on myself, or I feel overwhelmed. But then I get right back into it after I give myself some time to relax.
I think that that is a very important place to be at, right? Because I don't know. Sometimes when I think about people that feel all the time that it has to be them, then they're kind of like displaced from. There may be people that it may have to be, right? Mm-hmm. So a person that can't ask themselves, like, constantly reassess and say, okay, do I have the skill set to do this? Let me really look around. Like, maybe there is somebody, and then you do a real, like, you're willing to pass it for the good of what you're doing. And then you do an inventory, and then it comes back, well, it's probably gotta be me. I think those are the best leaders for it. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Who am I? Speaking of COVID, right? So we started this in the midst of the pandemic, right? So the check-in was birthed from the pandemic, right? It was literally me just saying, okay, well, I was just calling people like, hey man, good. Like, because I know being an entrepreneur, being out on your own, and at that point, we didn't know what it was going to look like. We didn't know about government aid or whatever. So, people be doing stuff to themselves when you don't know how your livelihood will come. So most of my friends have some type of entrepreneurial background. So I'm just calling them like, hey, you good? What's up? How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, how about this is how I can help. I can check on them and then also give my platform so that if they're selling a product or service, then I can like share with my people so that they can continue to support them through the pandemic. Next thing you know, boom, we like 80 or something interviews later, right, from all last year. That's just backdrop, right? Mm-hmm. But I say that to say that the pandemic was literally like a pivot point for me because I was not doing this before the pandemic. And so I want to know, what did the pandemic do to your business model and what you were doing?
Yeah. So like everything else, we were in person with mentoring our kids, working with our kids, having in-person events. But then COVID came, and so we had to stop that.
Right.
And it's so funny. This is why it's important to have a support system, but also within the structure of the business, we have a board of directors, right? And their job is to govern the organization, making sure that we're following policy, but also fundraising and making sure that we're doing our job. And so it kind of helps me because then I can pass off, so I can rely on them for support in ways that pertain to the organization, right? So when the stay-at-home ban hit, in my mind, as a CEO, and we work from home, I work from home. We don't have a physical location. So everybody works from home. I'm thinking, oh, great, I can relax now, because we also don't have staff. So that means that I run everything. I attend every program. I attend and run every event. I run everything, and that could be exhausting. So at that time, I was like, oh my God, I can stay home and I don't have to do anything. I could just relax, watch TV all day long, so stuff that I would have done if there wasn't if I was just home anyway. And then I get a call from my board chair a couple of days after, or sometime after. And she's just talking to me like regular. She's, asking how I'm doing and, where I am. And then she's like, so we have to figure out how we're going to pivot, maybe do some virtual classes, or she was just talking about doing a pivot and actually figuring out how we can adjust to COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And just keep full transparency. My first thought was like, I was gonna get a break. But then I was like, she's right. She's absolutely right, And so for that reason, we pivoted to create virtual classes. And that was in the cards. It just happened sooner than later. So we have online classes where we collaborate with like-minded businesses and organizations that have volunteered their time to create and teach an activity online. So we record it, we edit it, and then we teach it online. So they teach from one of our 4 subjects, which is self-esteem building, or health and wellness, or leadership, or youth development. So they have to have an area of expertise that they want to teach from that fits under one of those 4 categories. And then we record it and we post it upload to our YouTube channel for people to watch for free. And the purpose of that is for people, for caregivers, whether you're a teacher, you're an adult, parent, your older sibling, if it's for that caregiver of a child to learn how to have these discussions with that child, right? And then for the child to learn about themselves, right? Yeah. So that's the purpose of that. And so with doing that, it increased our volunteer base. So we had 44 volunteers and COVID, and they were all virtual. Well, no, we had in the beginning of COVID, beginning of the year, we had some that were in person, and then COVID happened, and then stay-at-home ban hit. So we had to stop that and pivot to virtual. So the remainder of the year, we had all virtual volunteers. So we had 44 in total, 44 businesses that we collaborated with. And then we were able to work with people from all over the world. So we had people from South Africa. We've had people from Egypt, Canada, UK. We've had literally every continent except Asia, I believe, or in South America. And that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have virtual learning or virtual connection. It also helped us to.
I might have the South America plug. We'll have to rap about that.
Okay. Wherever they are, if they don't have to be here in Houston, wherever they are, we'll take volunteers from anywhere. And then also it helped us, we increased our revenue last year. And that was the first year where I didn't have to put any money out of my pocket towards the organization. So so we had a lot of wins last year, I wouldn't say we were negatively affected by COVID. I know a lot of people were, unfortunately, but for us, it pushed us in the direction that we were going to go in eventually, but just a lot sooner.
So I will tell you that you are like in the majority in terms of your outlook. And I ask this question every single interview. And I don't think that I may have been one person who has said that like COVID has just like ruined, what they were doing. Every single person. It's like my little personal case study that I do. Every single person that I brought on here said that coming out of the pandemic, it was like a catalyst. And I think it speaks to the type of people, right? Because we're all hustlers, entrepreneurs, influencers. So we're used to being nimble anyway. And I think that COVID will serve as in the long run, like almost like a renaissance. And in terms of normalizing what we do, because like I said, my whole thing is being a business owner should not be taboo. It shouldn't be something that's taboo when we telling kids options of when they get older what they can do. So I think I'm on board 100% with the idea, and I'm also appreciative of the transparency, right? Because that's the missing thing too, is that you look online, you'll see, oh, look what I did, and then when people shine and people got this, I'm like, I can't trust you all. It's something's missing. You know what I'm saying? Like something's missing. So I can't just completely jump on what you do. But I digress in that aspect. But needless to say, you are definitely in the majority of the people that have come on here. Everybody has said that they had a better situation coming out of COVID. So you already spoke about you touched on innovation, right? And how how in that moment you had to pivot. Well, what does innovation look like for you in the next 5 years? Where do you want to be?
Yeah. So in the next 5 years, definitely want to establish a headquarters here in Houston.
Yeah.
And then at the least, one other location. I don't know where, but I would like for us to start branching off within the next 5 years to have franchises. And it's not called franchises, but for us, for nonprofits, I don't know what it's called, but like I want us to have
Silos.
There we go, different locations around the world. So I want us to have our next one. I'm start building up the next one, right? Start replicating what we do here somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that means that we would have to hire staff, which is, i.e. me. I would receive my full salary because at the moment I'm only receiving a portion of my salary, or when we have enough for me to receive a portion of the salary is when I will get paid. So that will change to me receiving my full salary, and then hiring a full staff for our headquarters here in Houston.
Yeah.
And that will require an office space. So full staff, office space, headquarters here, another location somewhere else. That's the goal in the next 5 years.
So that was thorough, and you have just become my new mentor. You don't even know it yet.
Me mentor? I don't know if I can do that.
Oh no,
I don't know how good I am.
You're gonna learn today because you're going. This is happening. I'm gonna keep bothering you until you just teach me. But anyway, that's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And I can see it. You know what I'm saying? And it's needed. So it's not like you're just putting together something and you're trying to get your money and like, nah, like you got to take care of yourself. You got to make sure that, because if you're not happy, then that's when people get in situations where they do underhanded stuff if you're not taking care of yourself. And I think that's very important that you brought up salary, right? Because that might be taboo. And we're talking about a nonprofit and we're talking about salary, but that's a real aspect. You know what I'm saying? That's a real aspect. And I'm so glad that first of all, that you're my mentor. And I'm so glad that you brought it up, right? So you've given so many jewels throughout the conversation. If you could think of like your culminating jewel, your brand of advice, as the way that I generally describe to a young person who is considering, starting their own business or just going on the path and ending up in business ownership. What would be your brand of advice for that individual?
I would say two things.
Okay.
The first thing is you have to get right with yourself.
Come on, somebody.
Know yourself first, because if you don't know yourself, your business is going to reflect that. Your business that you're trying to create will lead back to who you are, right? It's a direct reflection of our insecurities, our strengths, and if you're not solid in who you are, it's going to be much more challenging for you to build out your business. So do that self work, figuring out, the things that you enjoy, who you are, some of your traumas, because it's funny enough, like things will start popping up. You'll have triggers in your business. And that's how I think poor company culture is created, or a lot of things happen, but number one, a poor company culture is created is from the insecurities of the founders, right? Or insecurities of whoever is managing the company at that time, right? And if you can work through that at the ground level, when you build your business, then it'll it'll present itself in a different way. So
Hmm.
it's my first advice. And then my second advice is, this is specifically for Black entrepreneurs. I am a firm believer in providing services for the Black community.
Yeah.
But I also want us to consider the stereotypes that are centered around Black entrepreneurs and doing everything in your power not to be that stereotype, right? Understandably, things do happen. Like sometimes maybe you have, if you're e-commerce business and you're shipping things out yourself, orders might be late, right? But I think we have to have a foundation of care and respect for ourselves in our business. That should, it doesn't matter what race you are, but I think for us, it's for Black people, it's really important that we establish those foundations, because we as Black people employ more Black people than other companies, right? And so we have to build a foundation where people want to come work, where people want to purchase from us, people want to be a part of us. And that stems from our greatness that we automatically have. And I think that it's important that we do our research and learning how to build a business, because a lot of us we don't have a blueprint. We're out here trying to figure stuff out,
Right.
you know. And it's easy to fall into, I think, those stereotypes because we don't have the education, or we don't have the experience with starting a business, or we don't have people that we can see, that have created a business and seen it to its success.
Right.
So I think my biggest thing is for Black entrepreneurs to do their research, get a support system around you, so that we can build sustainable businesses where people want to be a part of.
100%. And it starts with a person like you being transparent, because that is what so and so from whatever race, they getting the real from their great uncle, right? And a lot of times we can fall into the showy category, because for so long we haven't had. So you want to feel like you have something. But the reality is that sometimes people are following you, and if they're not seeing the back end, the doubt, the fear, the fatigue, and then the crafty ways, the humility, if they're not seeing those things, that's why they're following you and they're not able to follow through, because they're not really seeing the whole story. So I thank you. All right, so this is a bit of a new segment. It's a very quick portion, and it's pretty much my fire round, right? Fire round of questions, where I will ask you questions that I would like for you to answer in one word. And there's only 5, so it's not going to take that much time. All right. So, in one word, who was Dozi in high school?
Naive.
Naive. Okay. All right. What's the one thing that you have to either have or do before you consider your day started?
A smoothie that I make. It's my breakfast energy smoothie. It's got peanut butter, banana. Oh, you said one word. I'm sorry. All right.
Well, look, man, I mean, I'm trying to give you I don't want to bombard you, but hey, I'm taking Jules peanut butter smoothie. Okay.
It's my favorite thing to have in the morning.
Okay. Title of the most influential person in your life?
Mother.
Mother. Okay. Your spirit animal?
Spirit animal. I don't know. A lioness.
Okay. All right. And finally, when it's all said and done, Dozi described in one word. now.
Powerful.
Powerful. Dozi, I want to thank you again for gracing the platform. This was dynamic. This was probably one of my best interviews. Because of you, whatever. I did my thing too, But no, I really appreciate it. And we've spoken offline, so I definitely want to work with you. I thank you for being my mentor. And yeah, so at this point, what I'd like for you to do is let the people know where they can find you and how they can support you.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in volunteering with us or making a donation, just learning more about what we do with our kids, they can go to www.choosetodoinc.org, which is our website. And that is CHOSSETODOINC.org. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to catch up with us to see what we have going on. And that is at Choose to Do Inc. And then subscribe to our YouTube channel where we upload our self-help and self-identifying online classes. And that's also Choose to Do Inc.
And on that note, first and foremost, I want to thank the people who generally tune in when you tune in, when this is available. I want to thank the new people for coming. Welcome. Where have you been? And finally, I'll say what I always say, the motto. And if you don't know by now, shame on you. If you call yourself a hustler and your hustle motivates, you got to check in. And we out. Dozi, thank you. And we will talk.
Thank you for having me.